Mara Flynn wiped down the last table in Aurelia Station's cafeteria, her hands sore from hours of work. The station hung in space like a silver jewel, orbiting a dying star far from any human colony. Life here was fragile. Every day humans survived was a small miracle, and Mara carried that weight quietly in her chest. She wasn't a soldier or a scientist, just a waitress. But she had learned long ago that courage didn't wear a uniform, it often wore grease-stained aprons. The cafeteria smelled faintly of burnt toast and recycled air. Mara glanced at the delivery bay where a shipment had arrived unexpectedly. She frowned. The crates were small, sealed, and labeled in a language she didn't recognize. Curious, she approached. A faint, iridescent glow leaked from one crate. When she carefully opened it, she froze. Inside were tiny eggs, no bigger than her fist, glowing faintly with a blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. What are you?" she whispered. Her voice trembled, part fear, part awe. The hatchlings moved inside, shifting and bumping against the shells. Something in them seemed alive in a way Mara had never seen. She knew instinctively they were dangerous or at least unpredictable. No one had ever brought alien creatures like this onto the station before. The station's AI console beeped urgently. Energy readings abnormal. Potential life forms detected. Alert command. Mara's stomach tightened. The governor's office would want them contained or destroyed. Supplies were tight, food even tighter. These hatchlings would be a burden. Most humans would have ignored them, left them to starve, or handed them over to the authorities. Mara's heart ached. They were small, defenseless, and alive. She made a choice. "You won't die," she murmured. She rushed to the kitchen, grabbed the only food she could spare, dry macaroni, and boiled it quickly. Her hands shook as she stirred, thinking about the danger. Feeding them could attract attention. She could be punished. But the fear in her chest didn't outweigh the little creature's need. Not yet. When she returned, she carefully placed the first spoonful of macaroni near a crack in the crate. One egg tilted, then another. Suddenly the shells cracked with tiny, sharp snaps. Mara stepped back, holding her breath. Tiny dragons, no larger than kittens, emerged. Their scales shimmered like crushed sapphires. Eyes wide, glowing softly, they sniffed at the macaroni. One braved a tentative bite. The moment it tasted the food, a soft hum filled the cafeteria, vibrating through the floor. Mara's eyes widened. The hatchling's glow intensified, running up its spine like liquid starlight. Sparks flickered across the cafeteria's lights. Her stomach knotted. Was this dangerous? Could they explode? Or worse, hurt someone? The hum deepened, reverberating through her bones. Mara had no idea what she had unleashed. A sudden alarm shrieked. The station's AI warned of energy surges near the delivery bay. Mara's heart raced. She could run, hide, call security, but she couldn't leave them. One hatchling crawled toward her, wings too small to lift it, but it tilted its head as if studying her. Its tiny gaze seemed to probe her courage, her intention. Mara swallowed hard and knelt. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." Her voice was steady despite the fear curling in her chest. The dragons responded with a shiver of light, and Mara realized they were aware, intelligent in a way that chilled and amazed her. Somehow, her kindness, the choice to feed them instead of leaving them, had mattered. She had acted without any plan, without authority, guided only by instinct and heart. And it had worked. For now. From the cafeteria's observation deck, she saw shadows moving through the station. Engineers and security officers were rushing toward the delivery bay. They had probably seen the lights. Panic surged in Mara's chest. She couldn't explain the dragon's sudden power. If the wrong people discovered it, they wouldn't understand. Humans here survived by control, rules, and order, but these creatures obeyed no rules. Mara gathered the hatchlings into her arms, careful not to crush them. They curled against her, wings brushing her arms like soft, warm light. Her mind raced. How can I keep them safe? How do I protect them and myself? Every instinct screamed that she was about to face the impossible. The governor's office wouldn't wait for explanations. And neither would the mysterious forces that must have sent these eggs to her station. The humming intensified, a low, cosmic vibration that filled every corner of the cafeteria. Mara felt it through her chest, through the floor beneath her boots. It was beautiful and terrifying. She took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. She might be just one human on a lonely station at the edge of the galaxy, but humans had always survived the impossible. She had a choice: let fear control her or act with courage and intelligence, even against odds she could not yet understand. The hatchlings pulsed with light, tiny stars in her hands. Mara looked up at the approaching shadows, the alarms blaring, the station trembling slightly with unknown energy. A chill ran down her spine. This was only the beginning. Somewhere deep in space, beyond the station's sensors, forces were stirring. And Mara Flynn, the waitress who had served macaroni to dragons, was about to discover just how far human courage could reach. The next morning, Aurelia Station hummed with a strange, unsteady energy. Mara hadn't slept. She sat in the cafeteria, staring at the small dragons curled in a circle on the counter, their tiny bodies glowing faintly like liquid sapphires. They moved carefully, almost deliberately, as if testing the limits of their new powers. Mara felt a mixture of awe and fear. What had she done? The station's AI blared suddenly. Energy anomaly detected. Unknown life forms emitting high-level cosmic energy. Containment required. Mara's stomach knotted. She had no idea what cosmic energy meant, but she could feel it thrumming in her chest like a heartbeat. The hatchlings were alive in ways the station's scientists had never imagined. Commander Harlan Vega appeared in the doorway, his face grim. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a voice that carried authority in every word. "Mara," he said sharply, "what did you do? Those creatures are unstable. We could lose the entire station if we don't act now." Mara stood, holding a small dragon in her hands. Its wings fluttered against her forearm, leaving a trail of shimmering light. "They're not dangerous like that," she said, voice steady. "I fed them. They respond to care, to courage. Look at them, they're aware, intelligent. They want to help." Harlan shook his head. "That doesn't matter. Energy levels are off the charts. If you can't contain them, I will." His hand hovered over the control panel, ready to activate a containment field that could hurt the hatchlings. Mara felt a surge of panic and determination. She couldn't let them be trapped, hurt, or destroyed. "They're alive, Harlan. You can't just treat them like machines." Mara's voice echoed through the cafeteria. "They're small now, but their potential—" She stopped, realizing she didn't fully understand it herself. Their potential could save the station, or destroy it. The smallest dragon, no bigger than her hand, jumped from her arm and hovered in the air. Its body pulsed, and suddenly the cafeteria lights flickered and stabilized. Mara's heart pounded. She gasped. The hatchling had absorbed the energy surge from the alarm system, turning it into a soft, protective glow. Harlan's jaw tightened. "Unbelievable," he muttered. He didn't know whether to be amazed or afraid. Mara seized the moment. "They can help us survive. But we have to work with them, not against them." Before he could respond, a sudden power spike shook the station. Alarms shrieked, lights dimmed, and the gravity in one hallway fluctuated wildly. Mara ran toward the sound, the dragons following her in a blur of starlight. She saw a security drone spinning out of control, sparks flying. Without thinking, she gestured, and the hatchlings reacted instantly. A burst of cosmic energy flowed from them, stabilizing the drone mid-spin. It hovered quietly as if nothing had happened. The station engineers emerged from the control room, eyes wide. "What is going on?" one shouted. "That shouldn't have been possible." Mara glanced at the dragons. They were glowing brighter now, eyes fixed on her. It was as if they were waiting for her guidance. She realized something profound. Her courage, her decision to care for them, had awakened abilities the galaxy had never seen before. Small humans, fragile, weak, could influence cosmic forces in ways no alien could predict. Then another alarm rang, more urgent. A containment breach had been reported near the cargo bay. Mara's pulse raced. If the dragon's power was uncontrollable, it could tear the station apart. But she also knew that abandoning them or handing them over would be worse. They weren't weapons, they were living beings who responded to trust, bravery, and care. She turned to Harlan. "We need a plan. Not to contain them, but to guide them. They respond to courage. They can protect the station, if we act fast." Harlan hesitated. His training and instincts screamed to enforce rules, to contain or neutralize unknown forces. But he looked at Mara, at the tiny dragons glowing softly in her hands, and saw something he hadn't expected. A human willing to act with intelligence and moral courage, even without authority. Slowly he nodded. "Fine. But one mistake, Mara, and this station is gone." Mara swallowed hard. She knew the risk. She failed, everyone could die. But humans had survived impossible odds before. She had faced the void, scarcity, and predators, not just in space but in the human heart itself. She could do this. She had to. The dragons stirred, sensing her resolve. One of them, slightly larger than the others, hovered toward the cargo bay doorway. Its wings spread, casting a faint glow along the walls. Mara followed, her steps light but confident. The station's crew watched her go, unsure whether to trust or panic. A sudden vibration ran through the floor, stronger than before. Something beyond the station, something massive, was approaching. Mara's eyes widened. Her heart raced, not with fear but with determination. The dragon's cosmic energy pulsed in response, brightening, vibrating as if readying for what was coming. Mara glanced back at Harlan. "We're about to find out what they can really do," she said. And then the station trembled with a deep, resonant hum that Mara had never heard before. The hatchling's light flared violently, and Mara felt it ripple through her chest like fire and wind combined. Whatever force was approaching the station had noticed them. And now the real test of human courage was about to begin. The rumble of the station grew louder, shaking floors and walls. Mara pressed herself against the railing of the observation deck, the tiny dragons circling her, wings leaving trails of starlight. Beyond the reinforced glass, a shadow loomed, a massive alien vessel, its hull black as void with jagged, glowing energy ports that pulsed like eyes. The VRYKK collective had arrived. Their reputation was terrifying. They conquered worlds, enslaved species, and crushed any who defied them. Humans were considered weak, fragile, expendable. Mara's heart pounded, but she refused to freeze. She looked down at the hatchlings. Their tiny bodies shimmered with cosmic energy, responding to her steady gaze. If the aliens attacked, the station would be destroyed before the dragons could even react. But Mara knew something most humans in the galaxy had forgotten. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. Courage was acting despite it. She turned to Commander Harlan Vega, who was already barking orders. "Shields up. Divert all power to weapons." His voice was firm, but there was tension beneath it. He had no idea the real weapon was in Mara's hands, and hovering above her head. "They're not weapons," Mara said sharply. "They respond to guidance, to care. If we fight like we always fight, we'll lose. But if we work with them, if we think differently, we have a chance." Harlan hesitated, scanning her face. He had been trained to rely on strategy, protocol, and brute force, not faith and instinct. But the light radiating from the dragons, pulsing in rhythm with Mara's heartbeat, made him pause. For once, he saw human courage in action, an ordinary human making an impossible choice. Mara grabbed a datapad from the console. The station schematics filled the screen, showing corridors, energy conduits, and gravity chambers. She traced paths with her finger. "We can guide them through the station," she said. "The aliens will follow the main corridors. But if we use gravity fields, energy conduits, and their cosmic energy, we can funnel the attack, and protect civilians." Harlan narrowed his eyes. "You mean, use the station itself as a weapon?" "Yes," Mara said. "And we do it carefully. One wrong move, we all die. But we survive together." She turned to the hatchlings. "We need to synchronize. I'll lead. You follow my signals." They pulsed brighter in response, almost as if nodding. Mara took a deep breath. "This is it." The aliens struck first. Their ships fired energy blasts that tore through the station's outer defenses. Sparks flew along corridors, alarms shrieked, and gravity fluctuated in pockets. Mara sprinted through the cafeteria carrying 2 hatchlings. She directed them toward the hydroponics bay, where rows of energy conduits ran overhead. "Feed the power," she commanded. The dragons arched their tiny wings, glowing brighter, and a ripple of energy shot through the conduits. The blasts from the aliens were absorbed and redirected, harmlessly firing into empty sections of space. Mara felt a surge of pride. Her courage, her decisions were changing the battle. Harlan's soldiers followed her, stunned but obedient. They had never seen humans coordinate with another species this way. Mara's mind worked quickly, calculating risks, paths, and energy flows. She shouted instructions, adjusting tactics on the fly. The dragons responded instantly, bending light to create illusions, manipulating gravity to slow incoming projectiles, and even lifting debris as barriers. Despite the chaos, Mara noticed one corridor flashing red, an emergency bulkhead closing automatically. Civilians were trapped inside. Mara froze for half a second, then sprinted without thinking. One dragon leapt onto her shoulder, its glowing eyes guiding her path. She reached the bulkhead, grabbed the manual override, and pulled. The metal slid open just as the corridor buckled under alien fire. Civilians stumbled out, wide-eyed, cheering her bravery. But there was no time to celebrate. A larger energy surge from the alien flagship slammed into the station, rattling the observation deck. Mara grabbed the dragons and jumped, landing near the central reactor core. Sparks flew, machinery whined, and smoke filled the room. The dragons pulsed, absorbing energy from the reactor, and Mara realized something incredible. Their cosmic energy could stabilize failing systems, but only if she guided it precisely. She raised her hands, directing the dragons toward the core's failing conduits. Light arced from their wings, intertwining with the reactor's energy, stabilizing it just enough to prevent meltdown. Mara's chest pounded, sweat stinging her eyes, but she didn't hesitate. She had one chance to save the station. One chance to prove that humans could survive against impossible odds with courage and intelligence. The aliens regrouped, their massive shadow blocking the view of distant stars. Mara gritted her teeth. They were relentless. But so were humans. She saw her crew, ordinary men and women, fighting alongside her, trusting her instincts. She looked down at the tiny dragons again. Their cosmic glow was responding to her focus, her choices. Her courage was feeding them. And together they were a force the galaxy had never seen. A warning light flashed across the console, structural integrity at 40%. Mara's breath came fast, but she didn't stop. The aliens were smart, but humans were smarter. Humans were adaptable. And this ordinary waitress, just one person, was about to show that courage could turn the tide of war. She whispered, "Stay with me. We're not done yet." The dragons pulsed violently in response, light exploding across the room. The aliens' energy blasts struck the corridors, but Mara guided the dragons, redirecting the power, shielding her crew. Every move was precise, every decision critical. The station trembled, groaned, but held. Mara realized the truth. Humans had survived because they had courage, and courage could awaken extraordinary power, even in tiny dragons. And in the distance, beyond the station's shields, the alien flagship hesitated. Something about the light, the human ingenuity, the strange creatures. It was uncharted. Mara knew this battle wasn't over. But for the first time she felt hope. The hatchlings circled her head, glowing like miniature suns. Mara's hands shook from exhaustion, but she smiled. The impossible odds hadn't crushed her. They had only proven that human determination could shape the universe in ways no alien expected. She looked at Harlan. This is just the beginning. They're more than dragons, they're part of us now. And somewhere beyond the reinforced hull, Mara could feel the aliens recalculating. They had underestimated humans, and that mistake would cost them dearly. The DracoWar flagship hovered just outside the station, its massive hull bristling with weapons that could level entire decks in seconds. Mara's hands shook slightly as she watched through the observation window, but she forced herself to breathe steadily. She had no fear of dying, not for herself, but for the station and the tiny dragons whose trust she carried. Humans had survived impossible odds before. They always had. And she was about to prove it again. She gathered the crew in the central command room. Engineers, security officers, and volunteers stared at her with wide eyes, exhausted but alert. Mara placed her hands on the table, pressing herself into the moment. Listen carefully. We don't have the firepower to fight them head-on. But we do have something they don't understand: courage, quick thinking, and the dragons. If we act together, we can use the station itself against them. Harlan Vega, standing nearby, raised an eyebrow. The station itself? Mara, that's... Yes, she cut in sharply. Dangerous. Risky. But it's our only chance. We'll guide the dragons through the energy conduits, along the gravity lifts, and toward their ship's attack vectors. They'll disrupt their weapons, confuse their sensors, and protect the civilians. It has to be precise. One mistake, the station is gone. The hatchlings hovered around her shoulders and arms, their small bodies pulsing with light. Mara felt the hum of their energy, a rhythmic heartbeat that synced with her own. It was as if they were waiting for her orders, ready to follow instinct and courage alike. She whispered, "We do this together. One step at a time. Trust me." The first wave of the DracoWar's energy blast slammed into the station, shaking walls, throwing crew members off balance. Sparks flew across consoles, alarms screamed, and gravity fluctuated in pockets. Mara sprinted along the catwalk carrying two hatchlings. They responded instantly to her movements, wings spreading to absorb and redirect the energy surges. Mara guided them toward the reactor core, where the blast threatened to destabilize the station entirely. The dragons flared with cosmic light, and Mara realized something incredible: they were amplifying her own courage and focus. Every calculated risk she took, every decision she made, strengthened their power. Mara's heart pounded with adrenaline. She had no weapon but her mind, her instincts, and the dragon's trust, and it was enough. "Divert power to the outer conduits," she shouted to the engineers. They obeyed instantly, rerouting energy and opening channels for the dragons to channel through. Light and gravity bent around the tiny creatures, forming a protective, shifting shield that deflected incoming blasts. Mara's plan was working, but only just. The aliens were relentless, their ships adjusting to her strategy faster than she anticipated. Then a bulkhead began to buckle under sustained fire, trapping several civilians inside. Mara didn't hesitate. She dove through the smoke and sparks, a hatchling on each shoulder, and reached the door. Pulling the override lever, she swung it open just as a beam of plasma struck the wall behind her. She dragged the civilians to safety, their eyes wide with fear and awe. One young engineer whispered, You're amazing." Mara didn't respond. She didn't have time. A second blast rocked the observation deck, throwing her to the floor. The dragons shimmered violently, wings flaring, absorbing energy from the walls and floors. Mara rose, brushing herself off, and ran toward the energy control chamber. She guided the hatchlings to the conduits above. "Now," she shouted. Light surged from them in a concentrated beam that raced along the conduits, arcing into the corridors where alien energy blasts had struck. The blasts were absorbed, redirected, and dissipated harmlessly into space. The crew watched in awe as the dragons, under Mara's command, became a living defense system. But there was no time to celebrate. The DracoWar flagship was moving closer, preparing a concentrated strike aimed directly at the reactor core. Mara's eyes widened. She could stabilize the station systems, but she needed one final, decisive action. She looked at the hatchlings. "Everything we've done leads to this. Trust me. Give me everything you have." Their bodies pulsed brighter than ever, cosmic energy rippling outward in waves. Mara ran to the reactor's main control panel, her fingers flying across switches and levers, diverting energy to the dragons. Sparks of starlight erupted from the hatchlings, flowing into the reactor, stabilizing it even as the alien strike approached. The blast hit. The hull trembled violently, shaking floors and ceilings. But the station held. The dragons had absorbed, redirected, and amplified the energy, creating a protective field stronger than any human-made shield. Mara's chest heaved, sweat streaking her face, but she smiled. They had done it. Against impossible odds, humanity had survived. From the observation deck, she watched the DracoWar flagship hesitate. Its systems were disrupted, its weapons offline, its sensors confused by the dragon's cosmic energy. Mara had done what humans always did, turned weakness into strength, fear into courage, and ordinary beings into heroes. Harlan approached, voice low and awed. "I didn't think it was possible. We just survived against a fleet we shouldn't have had a chance against." Mara glanced at the tiny dragons circling her head, their lights slowly dimming to a gentle glow. "They're not just dragons. They're partners. Humans survive because we act, because we think, because we care. That's why we win." The crew erupted in quiet cheers. Mara felt the exhaustion settle into her bones, but also a surge of pride. Humanity had faced extinction many times in many forms. Yet here they were, alive because one human had acted with courage and heart, and had inspired extraordinary beings to rise with them. Mara looked out at the stars beyond the station, her mind racing with the possibilities. The DracoWar fleet would regroup, but so would humans. And the dragons, they were just beginning. Somewhere deep in the cosmos, Mara knew the galaxy would remember this day. One human's courage had turned the tide. And nothing would ever be the same again. The station was quiet now, except for the low hum of machinery and the faint glow of the hatchlings circling the central hub. Mara sank onto a bench, exhaustion pulling at her limbs, but her mind was sharp, alive with the thrill of what had just happened. Aurelia Station had survived an attack that should have destroyed it. Humans had prevailed, not through brute force but through courage, intelligence, and heart. Commander Harlan Vega approached cautiously, his usual strict posture softened. "I can't believe it," he muttered. "I fought across 3 systems and I've never seen anything like this. You led them. You led us." Mara shook her head, a tired smile on her lips. "They followed us, Harlan. I just made the choices." Her eyes wandered to the tiny dragons, now hovering near the observation windows, their cosmic glow gentle and steady. "They're alive. They're thinking, learning. We didn't just survive. We inspired them to be more than what anyone expected." A group of engineers emerged from the corridors, faces streaked with sweat and grime. One of them, a young woman named Lyra, stepped forward. "We're alive because of you, Mara. And because of them. I've never seen humans work like this." Mara's chest swelled with pride, but it wasn't the kind that came from fame or recognition. It was deeper, quieter, the pride of knowing she had done what was right when the galaxy expected fear, hesitation, or surrender. Humanity wasn't just surviving anymore. Humanity was proving that courage could change the course of events, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. The hatchlings flew closer, small wings beating softly against the recycled air of the station. They hovered around Mara's shoulders, brushing against her hair and arms, leaving traces of light that faded slowly. She reached out, her hands trembling, and one of them landed lightly in her palm. Its eyes glowed a deep, cosmic blue, and Mara felt a wave of understanding pass through her, almost like a heartbeat syncing with hers. "They trust you," Harlan said quietly, watching the interaction. Mara nodded. "And I trust them. That's what matters. Trust, courage, that's what humans survive on. That's what makes us extraordinary." Across the station, messages started arriving from nearby colonies. News of Aurelia Station's defense spread rapidly. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, dismissed as fragile and weak by the greater powers of the galaxy. But now, word of a single human, and a handful of tiny cosmic dragons, holding off the DracoWar collective without a conventional fleet was spreading like wildfire. Humans were no longer merely survivors. They were heroes, strategists, and catalysts for extraordinary events. Mara walked to the main observation window, looking out at the stars. The DracoWar flagship was retreating, its massive hull disappearing into the distance. Mara felt no triumph in victory, only relief. This fight was over, but she knew there would be others. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of forces that would challenge humans at every turn. And yet, for the first time, she felt confident. Humans could meet those challenges not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, brave, and unafraid to act when hope seemed impossible. Harlan approached her again, his tone softer than she had ever heard. "You've changed how we fight, Mara. Not with weapons, but with courage and thinking. Humans will remember this. And so will the galaxy." Mara glanced at the dragons again. They hovered above the concourse now, their cosmic energy radiating in soft waves. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We've shown what's possible when humans act with courage. But the universe is bigger than this station, bigger than any one fight. And we'll be ready." A small alarm blared from the central console. Mara frowned and walked over. Sensors detected unusual readings in the outer docks. Another fleet? She didn't panic. She had learned something invaluable. Fear was not a weapon humans needed to survive. Intelligence, courage, and decisiveness were. With the hatchlings by her side, Mara knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. One of the hatchlings, the smallest of the group, perched on her shoulder, its tiny head nudging her cheek. Mara smiled. "We survived today," she whispered. "But tomorrow we'll keep surviving. And maybe we'll show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of." The crew began to gather around her, exchanging stories of bravery and teamwork. Lyra, still shaking from adrenaline, laughed softly. "I never thought a tiny dragon and a cafeteria waitress could save an entire station." Mara chuckled, brushing sparks of cosmic light from the hatchlings off her sleeves. "Neither did I," she admitted. "But humans can do more than anyone expects. That's the lesson." Across Aurelia Station, life began to normalize. Systems were repaired, civilians reassured, and alarms silenced. Yet the memory of the battle remained alive, etched in every corner of the station and in the hearts of its people. Mara looked once more at the hatchlings. They hovered gracefully, their cosmic glow calming the tension in the room. "They're part of our world now," she said softly. "And we're part of theirs." As she gazed at the stars, Mara felt a deep certainty. The universe was full of dangers beyond imagination, but it was also full of hope. Humans, fragile though they might appear, could rise to meet the impossible. One human, with courage and determination, could change the outcome of the galaxy. And Mara Flynn, waitress, strategist, and unlikely hero, had just done that. The hatchlings pulsed softly in the quiet room, tiny stars against the darkness of space, reflecting humanity's potential to shine even against impossible odds. Mara smiled, her heart full. The station was safe. The crew was alive. And humanity had proven that courage, intelligence, and heart could awaken extraordinary forces, even in the darkest corners of the universe. Somewhere beyond the station, Mara knew the galaxy would never underestimate humans again.